Before we get into this gospel, I just want to make some preliminaries. And one of it is that we must understand that Jesus is a Jew. He's a Jew, so he knows all the laws. He knows what it means to break the law of the Sabbath. And the question remains that why will he defend the apostles for doing the wrong thing? Because on the Sabbath, any Jew, any faithful Jew would not do anything. And we have seen this pattern all along in Mark's Gospel, just like I was saying yesterday. Yesterday we heard that the apostles were even being accused of not fasting, and Jesus still defended them. We know previously that Jesus had visited the house of Levi, the beginning of Mark's Gospel, and he was condemned because no proper Jew would go to dine with a tax collector and sinner. But Jesus still defended that. Jesus is always standing on the side of sinners. You would expect that Jesus, perfect as he is, being God, will be able to stand on the path of those who are righteous and those who are doing well and push away sinners away, or push them away from himself. But that is not what happens. You can see that even in the story of the leper who came to Jesus. He was not supposed to come close to people, but in fact Jesus reached out to him. It tells us something about God that we as human beings do not have. Because today in the gospel we hear the Jews come to him, the Pharisees, and they say, look what your disciples are doing. You're supposed to condemn them. You're supposed to tell them they are doing the wrong thing. But this is not what Jesus does. Jesus stands with the sinners. He stands with the weak. The problem really at times is us, because we condemn ourselves more than how God looks at us. God does not look at us as people who are damned unworthy, or people who have no way out. He looks at us as people who are potentially his children, and he wants to claim that father relationship that we have lost through our sinfulness. The parable of the lost sheep, he says, even after the father has lost one, when he loses one of his sheep, he goes out in search of that and abandons the 99, because that one is very treasurable for him. There was a teacher who came to class, and the students were to write an exams that day. And then he gave, I think you've heard this story many times, but he gave them question exams. He gave them all in front of them, and then at some point he said, now you can turn over and start to write. And then the students realized that there was nothing on this sheet of paper. There were no questions, but just a black dot. There's a black dot on this piece of paper. And then he said, write what you see. Answer the question that you see. And then the students thought they were to write about this black dot. So everybody started writing. Others were writing how big the black dot is. Others were writing the position of the paper where the black dot is. Just trying to be creative about what the black dot looks like and what it is. And nobody talked about the white part of the paper, the plain sheet of the paper, the white part of the paper, the clean part of the paper. Everybody was talking about the little black dot. They forget about the 99.9% of the paper, which is all white. And at times, this is how we look at ourselves. We forget so much about what God is doing through us. We forget so much about the good things that God is doing through us. And we so focus on our sinfulness. That is where the devil wants us to be. He wants us to be in that position where we condemn ourselves. He wants us to be in that path where we look back at ourselves and we say, we are not worth it. And this is how the gospel, the first reading today begins. God would not be so unjust as to forget all that you have done. God would not be so unjust us to forget all that you have done. In fact, we forget so much all that we have done. We so much focus on the little bad thing that we have done. That is where the devil wants us to be. He wants to trap us in that little world of condemning ourselves. He wants to trap us in that place where we carry that yoke he has placed upon us and says, you are unworthy, you are a sinner, just like the people said, you are a tax collector, you are not worthy to have Jesus under your roof. No, you are not worthy, you are a sinner, you are broken. This is not how God looks at us. In fact, the biggest problem that we have is that it's so difficult for us to forgive ourselves. It's about God's forgiveness for us. It's done already, long time and forgotten. That is why people would go to confession. I think Father Anish had that experience, and myself. Somebody would come to confession and say, Father, I know I confessed this sin already, but I want to confess it again. What is wrong with that? You've confessed already, then the sin is forgiven. But at times it's so difficult for us to forgive ourselves, or to believe even that God has forgiven us. Just to know, I confess this many times, Father, but it's still in my heart. No, God has cleansed that already. Maybe you have not cleansed it. Maybe we have not forgiven ourselves, because the devil wants to hold us in that yoke of saying, we are not worthy, we are sinful, we are condemned, there is no way out for us. And my dear brothers and sisters, Jesus stands with those who are broken. I'm not saying that we go sinning because Jesus stands with us. I just want to say that God is merciful to us, especially when we are weak. He wants to bring us to that place where He wants us to be. He wants to reclaim us again as His sons and daughters. If only we can open up to Him and accept His love, accept His mercy, and accept His forgiveness. Because His love for us, His mercy for us, is far bigger than our sinfulness.